Anniversary. The remnants of a merry scene livened the rental hall with lingering activity. Two women worked in the kitchen, one middle-aged, one younger, chattering back and forth as they packed up food to be taken out. A middle-aged man washed and dried dishes, setting them in a container rather haphazardly. In the large open section, an old man and woman were clearing the tables of any remaining litter, while a young couple had started clearing chairs away. The older of the two women in the kitchen glanced up and saw them through the large open serving counter. "Mom! Dad! We'll get that! Go sit down! This is too much work for you!" she chided. The old woman clearing tables made a playful shooing motion at her daughter, but the old man sent her a grateful smile and took his wife's hand, leading her to a comfortable set of chairs in the corner of the room near a low fire. The old woman acquiesced and settled into one of them, retaining possession of her husband's hand. Together they sighed at the comfortable warmth of the hearth, and they sat in the companionable silence that comes with familiarity. This had been their 50-year wedding anniversary, and almost all of their friends and family had come to the party thrown by their children. Theirs had been a long and happy marriage. There had been hard times, as there were in every relationship. Children, work, even life itself had thrown many obstacles at them, but as a team they worked through them, conquering them with a fierce dedication to each other and the life they had built. Now they sat and rested, enjoying the evening. "It was a lovely party the kids threw for us," the woman stated contentedly. The man squeezed her hand, gazing at her with a loving smile. She mirrored his smile, and a bout of laughter drew their attention to the dining room, where the young man and woman were folding up tables. The young woman was doubled over in laughter, and the man had an infatuated grin on his face. The old couple looked back at each other and smiled gently, both thinking the same thing.
"Look at them. They're just starting out,"
the old man voiced unnecessarily. The woman nodded, remembering how the young man, their grandson, had proposed to his girlfriend of 1 year at dinner. Perhaps others might have seen it as a detraction from their special day, but the older couple had been thrilled to see their grandson so happy, and even happier to have been a part of it. "Now we just have to hang in there until their wedding," the old woman joked. The old man laughed.
"If you're there, I'll be there with you,"
he said with a gentle pat of her hand.
"I'll be your +1."
He gazed at her, his wife of 50 years, and thought of the past, as old men often do in the quiet moments. He remembered the life they had lived, and tried to think of the life he might have lived had they never met. It was impossible for him to imagine. She had been such an integral part of his life for so long. She gazed back at him. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction. It felt to her like their whole lives had been leading to this moment, sitting before the fire with the sounds of their daughter and son in the kitchen, their granddaughter with them, and their grandson with his now fiancée behind them. A sleepy grumble sounded from the corner, and the younger of the two women in the kitchen looked over at a fallen pile of coats in time to catch a blonde head full of messy curls rising up sleepily from their midst. The woman smiled fondly at the child, then she looked apologetically at her mother. Her mother shook her head, brushing off the apology as only a mother can. "Go, get that little one to bed," she ordered, watching as her daughter went to attend to her grandson. The food was mostly packed up. She could do the rest herself. The young woman scooped up her child, and he went limp in her arms, falling back asleep almost in the same instant. Her brother grinned and shook his head, then went to open the door for his sister, since she had her hands full with his nephew. His fiancée picked up the coats from the child's makeshift bed, hanging them neatly on the hangers while she waited for him to return.
"They're a good team,"
the old man observed.
"That's a good sign. They'll be just fine."
The old woman nodded at his side, squeezing his hand. "Our grandson will be fine no matter what. He's a good man, and he loves that girl. And he knows the truth about love and commitment," the old woman replied with a sly wink. The old man chuckled, remembering the talk their grandson had with them earlier that day. He had asked their permission to ask for his girlfriend's hand during their party. Overjoyed, they had given him their blessing, but had a rather long talk with him beforehand about what they had learned in their 50 years together.
How do I know she's the one for me?
The young man asked, looking into an open ring box. A modest-looking ring sat within.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I love her, but how do I know for sure?
There are so many different kinds of love and so many different ways to show it. Everyone is different and everyone loves differently. Some people spend their whole lives searching for their perfect partner, and they just find disappointment. Truth of the matter is, the perfect partner doesn't exist. People are flawed.
The old man intoned seriously.
But how did you and Grandma make it so long then?
The young man asked. He looked at the ring in its box for a moment longer, then closed it and slipped it back in his pocket.
And how do I know she's the one?
You don't commit to a person. You commit to a relationship, which is the future you create between you and her. Being committed to a relationship means forever. She will always be a part of you. You are a different person now from when you met her, and if you commit to a relationship with her, you commit to growing together, the old woman said sagely.
Tell me, how does she make you feel?
The old man asked. The young man pondered it for a moment, then smiled softly.
In a word, hopeful. When I think of her, I feel like the details aren't important, that no matter what happens in our lives, I can get through it if she's with me.
The young man said decisively. The old woman gathered him into a hug, and the young man returned the embrace, then laughed happily in his grandmother's arms. The relief at having his decision firmly made dissolved the tension in him, and he felt almost giddy with excitement. "Then you know the answer, dear. You're ready," she whispered in his ear. The young man pulled back from her embrace, then gave his grandfather a hug as well. The old man clapped the young one on the back after a few seconds, and they parted with huge smiles.
I'm going to go pick her up. Do you need anything before I go?
The young man asked. The older couple shook their heads, wishing the young man a safe drive. With a wave and a quick
See you later.
he was out the door and on his way. The young man in question returned from helping his sister to her car, and his grandparents smiled and waved as he passed. He grinned at his grandfather and gave his grandmother a kiss on the top of her head, then went to rejoin his fiancée in cleaning up the floor. The activity was winding down in the kitchen, and the middle-aged woman had relegated her brother to bringing the leftover food out to the car. She had a rather rough edge to her character, but she had pitched in for this party none the less, recognizing it for the special occasion it was. She came over to bid her parents good-bye. She loved her father dearly, but had never really seen eye to eye with her mother. They wished her safe travels on her way back home, and she left. The lights dimmed, and the old couple looked up in surprise. The newly engaged couple had been the cause. The young man pulled out his phone. Then a few moments later, a sweet, slow song began to play. The young man pulled his fiancée into his arms to dance in the dim lighting, and she swayed with him, gazing into his eyes as though he was the only thing that mattered to her in this moment. The old couple looked at each other tenderly, then rose as one, stepping together to dance with each other as well in the low firelight. 50 years of being together had taught them that happiness shared is multiplied, and sorrow shared divided. As the song ended, the old couple's son shooed the young couple out the door and into the darkness of winter evening. They waved once again as they left, thanking the young man's grandparents for the lovely evening. All the clean-up tasks were done, and the old couple's son stood ready to take them home. They all bundled into his car, his parents together in the back seat, still holding hands. The old couple drowsed contentedly in the back seat on the ride to their home. When the car stopped, their son got out as well and walked between the old couple to the door of their house, making sure neither slipped on the walkway. Once they got to the door, the old couple turned and thanked their son.
Thank you for the ride home, Ben. Care to come in for a cup of coffee?
the old man asked. Ben shook his head.
I have a lot of work to do tomorrow. I should really get home and get to bed.
He declined gently. The old couple nodded and hugged him, saying good night and wishing him a safe drive home. As their son left, the couple retired to their bedroom, feeling the deep peace that comes with having your partner near you. They slipped into bed and shared a lingering sweet kiss, then lay back, their hands connected under the blankets, and they closed their eyes. "Good night, Arthur. I love you," the old woman whispered. The old man smiled and replied with his half of their bedtime ritual.
Good night, Mattie. I love you too.